p.m. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. DeFazio, for 5 minutes.
Well, by all accounts, we're finally going to get serious about the mountain of debt that's been built up over the last 10 years that we're going to leave for our kids and grandkids. Nearly $14 trillion, a number that's hard to actually understand. Now, I'm hopeful it will really be a serious discussion, but it can't be as long as the Republican rules stand. The Republicans have said that if you reduce income to the government, that doesn't count toward the debt or the deficit. You have to borrow the money, probably from China, and it goes on the debt for our kids and grandkids, but they don't count that because it's your money. We're giving it back to you. Except, of course, we're still spending more than is coming in. Now, I'm all for looking at the expenditure side, and there's a lot of places I'd like to cut. Republicans have put some of them off limits. We can't look anywhere in the Pentagon who has, is still acquiring through cost-plus contracts weapons that were designed to fight during the Soviet era. We're wasting a fair amount of money over there. It's well documented. The Pentagon is the only agency of the federal government that can't be audited. Every other agency is audited. Most of them get good grades. Pentagon, they say maybe within 5 years they will have an accounting system that could be audited. Come on. And we're going to exempt them from scrutiny and review and cuts. The war in Afghanistan, they've exempted that from cuts. I think we're spending about $200 billion this year on the wind down in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan. But that's off the table as far as Republicans are concerned. And Social Security, they say, is off the table, and that's good. Medicare is off the table. They just added to the costs of Medicare with legislation they passed last week, but that doesn't count either. That was exempt. So what's left? Well, we're going to have, because of the tax cuts adopted in December, a $1.6 trillion one-year deficit. Now, if we were only going to get to a balanced budget this year with cuts, that would mean eliminating the entire government of the United States of America. We'd still make our Social Security payments, and we wouldn't be able to exempt the Pentagon, which they want to do if we wanted to really get to $1.6 trillion. No more border patrol, no more Homeland Security, no more Coast Guard, no more Postal Service, no more Centers for Disease Control. Department of Education, gone. They wouldn't care much about that. Park Service, I guess, would probably sell off the parks, the highest bidder. I don't know. So you can't be serious and stand here and say, we're going to put this hand and tie it behind our back, which is the revenue side. Oh, and by the way, if we give millionaires and billionaires tax cuts and reduce our income, that doesn't count. If we allow corporations continue to use overseas tax loopholes to avoid paying a responsible level of taxes here in the United States, that doesn't count. Can't close any loopholes. That would be bad. No, they just say we're going to do it all in cuts. It's an impossible task. But I worry, even though they say they've exempted Social Security, that that's not really their game plan. Because for the first time this year, we will borrow money to put into Social Security. The program was created. It's always been funded by its own tax. But this year, the Republicans cooked up an idea, which President Obama bought into lock, stock, and barrel, to reduce the Social Security tax under the guise of giving people back their money and putting people to work. Every member of Congress will get over $2,000 tax break this year because of that one provision. Every millionaire and billionaire will get over $2,000 tax break. Working people will get a tax break too, and they can use a tax break. But there were better ways to do it, less costly ways to do it, and ways to do it without jeopardizing the future of Social Security. So part of the borrowing this year, a couple of $100 billion of that borrowing this year, is going to be from China to the government will borrow to re-inject into the Social Security Trust Fund. So I fear that the Republicans are going to say, well, wait a minute, we can't subsidize that Social Security thing. And oh, by the way, you can't restore the taxes and run Social Security on its own income. So they're creating some impossible scenarios here. I'm hopeful the president will chart a better path, one that doesn't go after Social Security. Social Security didn't create until this year 1 penny of the debt of the United States, but this year it will create $200 billion of debt for the United States. A very bad precedent set by a bipartisan problem, the Republicans and President Obama, and some few Democrats. Let's get real about the deficit.